and welcome to this week's edition of What's in the Night Sky. This week I'll be talking about Noctilucent Clouds, shapes on the moon, Saturn's rings, how to spot the ISS, and the constellation of Cassiopeia, the Queen. Let's start by talking about Noctilucent Clouds. The clouds are usually cursed by astronomers, but not so for Noctilucent Clouds or night shining clouds. Noctilucent clouds form very high up at the edge of space when conditions are just right in the summer months. They're created when ice crystals form around dust particles left behind by meteors in the upper atmosphere. And the sun continues to illuminate those clouds after it has set for us at ground level because they're so high up. And what that can lead to is these amazing displays of glittering electric blue swirls and tendrils in the night sky. The best time to see them is a couple of hours after the sun has set, so you want to be going around having a look around midnight. And if you head outside and look to the north, which if you're not sure which direction is north where you are, it's going to be to the right of where the sun has just set. And if you're still not sure where north is, you could use the Big Dipper to help you locate north. So if we have a look, so here I'm looking north on Monday the 29th of June at around midnight, and you can see the familiar shape of the Big Dipper here. And as we've talked about before, if you follow these two pointer stars in the Big Dipper, draw an imaginary line between them and move them along, they will point you to Polaris, the North Star. Another way that you might realise that you're looking north is to look for Capella, because Capella is quite a bright star, and it's if you spot it, you know that you're looking north. It will be quite low to the horizon though, so you'll need a fairly clear horizon to be able to spot it. So once you've figured out that you are looking north or roughly north, then you can have a go at spotting these night shining clouds. If you do manage to spot any, then you could have a go at capturing them with your smartphone camera. And if you do, we'd love to see some of your images, so please do send them to us if you manage to capture any. You could also try, if you have a pair of binoculars, you could try using those to study some of the more delicate structures within the clouds. Although having said that, Noctilucent clouds are a brilliant naked eye phenomena to go out and try and have a look for, so you definitely don't need any special equipment for them. Let's take a look at the moon now. So I'm just going to swing around, find the moon. Here we are. And we begin the week with the moon a little over half illuminated, and we're waxing towards a full moon. So here we are on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and reaching full on Sunday. Now this week, while the moon is full, why not try spotting some of the shapes that are made by its features, the famous one being the man in the moon. And for the man in the moon's face is made up by the different seas on the lunar surface. So the Sea of Tranquility, which I'm ringing now, and the Sea of Showers, making up the man in the moon's eyes, and the Sea of Vapours and Islands, making up the nose, and the Sea of Clouds, making up the mouth. Or sometimes you see it depicted as the Sea of Serenity and the Sea of Showers as the eyes, rather than the Sea of Tranquility and the Sea of Showers as the eyes. Other shapes that you might try and spot include the rabbit on the moon, the woman in the moon, and the moon toad. So this week a little challenge for you is to see how many of those you think you can spot on the full moon on Sunday. Let's take a look at our constellation of the week now. So I'm going to swing us back around to the north, and here we can spot Cassiopeia, the Queen, and Cassiopeia is quite easy to spot because of the distinctive W shape of the constellation, and it requires a bit more imagination to see it as a queen. So I'm going to put the art on for you, and here we go. You can see a queen sitting on a chair in the night sky. And if you are struggling to find Cassiopeia, then you can use the Big Dipper as a pointer. And the Big Dipper is really useful because it's very distinctive shape in the night sky, and it's really bright, and we can use it to point to all sorts of different things. And in the case of Cassiopeia, if you take any of the stars in the handle of the Big Dipper, draw an imaginary line from that star through the pole star, and that will take you to Cassiopeia. So if I pick this star to the pole star, to Cassiopeia. And according to Greek mythology, Cassiopeia boasted that she was more beautiful than all of the sea nymphs, which angered Poseidon, god of the sea. So he sent a sea monster to destroy her kingdom. And to appease the monster, Cassiopeia's daughter Andromeda was left tied to a rock by the sea. Here she is down here. And she was rescued by Perseus, the hero, riding upon Pegasus, the flying horse, and they lived happily ever after. And all of the characters in the story were elevated to the heavens by the gods, but due to her vanity, Cassiopeia was bound to her chair and destined to spend half of her time in the heavens upside down. And we can see that if we speed up time. So here she is bound to her chair. Here's the pole star. And if we speed up time, we'll see that she rotates around the pole star, as all the constellations do, and that she will spend half of her time upside down. There we go. So you can see that if we rotate around a full circle, she'll be upside down. I just want to spend a minute or two talking about the International Space Station now. There are a few opportunities to spot the International Space Station this week. I'm just going to talk about one of them as an example, the one that I think will probably be the best one if the sky is clear, and that is on Sunday the 5th at just after 3 AM. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And so we're on 3 AM Sunday the 5th now, and I'm just going to speed up time a little till we see the ISS come into view. There it is. So let's take that back and see it again. So coming into view at about 9 minutes past 3. And you can see the path now that it will take across the night sky. If you want to find out all of the opportunities to spot the ISS from where you are, then you can visit the NASA website, which is called Spot the Station, and you input where you are located and it will tell you exactly when all of the sightings will be. Let's take a look at the planets now. So I'm going to take us back to Monday the 29th in the early evening, and we'll see our familiar trio of Jupiter, Saturn and Mars rising in the south. And Jupiter and Saturn are now rising before midnight, which is good news if you don't want to stay up too late. And I'd like to take a closer look at Saturn this week. So let's zoom in. And if you want to try and observe Saturn's large moon Titan, then you might be able to manage that with a pair of binoculars. If you'd like to observe Saturn's rings, then you are going to need a small telescope to do that. And I'd like to think back to the first time that Saturn was being observed with a telescope, and that was back in 1610 by Galileo. So just as Galileo observed Jupiter's moons for the first time in 1610, he also observed Saturn with a telescope for the first time. If we go to 1610, we can see Saturn as it would have appeared in 1610. And when Galileo was viewing Saturn through his telescope, it wasn't powerful enough for him to recognise the rings to be rings, and he mistook them for two moons, which he described as ears on either side of the planet. And 2 years later, in 1612, when he came back to observe Saturn again, if we go to 1612, he noticed that those ears had disappeared, and he wondered to himself, has Saturn devoured its children? And we now know, of course, that Saturn hadn't devoured the rings, that they are still there. And to understand what's happening, we need to think about the way that we see the rings and how that varies as Saturn orbits the Sun. And when the rings appear to be edge-on to us, they appear to disappear because they are so thin. And if we go back to 1610 and speed up time, I'm just going to change a few things down here so it doesn't go squiffy when we speed up time. I'm going to speed up time a lot, and if you look at the date down here, you'll see it whizzing through the months to 1612. You should see that the appearance of the rings is beginning to change. As time goes on. As we go through 1611, the rings are getting closer and closer to being edge-on to us. And here we are in the middle of 1612, and the rings appear to have almost completely disappeared. And that is due to the fact that they are edge-on to us. So let's go back now to 2020, and we can see that at the moment we are in a favourable time for observing the rings. So if you do have access to a small telescope, then now is a good time to have a go and see if you can spot Saturn's rings. And you could try coming back over the months and seeing if you can see any difference to how the rings appear to you over time. I'd like to leave you this week with my favourite image of Saturn's rings, which was taken by the Cassini probe in 2013, and it shows the rings backlit by the Sun, and it's an amazing image in of itself, but also you can see that nestled within the rings there is a tiny object that you could easily mistake for one of Saturn's moons, but it is in fact the Earth. And to paraphrase Carl Sagan, it's amazing to think that the entire history of our species is contained within that tiny little dot, and that we are all in that image, providing that we were born before 2013, of course.